Hey, good evening, guys. This is January 21st. We're still in the winter term, School of Tomorrow. If you saw the previous video, we were diving into Marshall McLuhan and our new media culture, which allows us to both have our cake and eat it too, in the sense that it used to be, was it books or TV? And now it's reading on TV. It's something we maybe didn't anticipate at first. I mean, the original CRTs did start to display data right away, but it wasn't sharp enough to replace the book. And then comes sharp screens, no longer CRTs necessarily, Kindles, phones, all kinds of devices. And now I go back and forth between my screens and books. Speaking of books, I'm reading the David Bowie bio, this new one here, and interesting because a lot of what shaped him shaped me. The situation in Tibet is powerful in my early writings as well, and his kind of life trajectory. I can see a lot of myself just in his concerns, what he was focused on. It's a good book. I'm enjoying it, and I'm listening to his music more. I haven't been an expert on David Bowie. Now, in terms of synergetics and the kind of stuff we look at closely here at the School of Tomorrow, I had a really good experience going again to the Theosophical library there out on Beaverton Hillsdale Highway. They're only open on Fridays, and I was on my way actually to visit with Bradford Hanson Smith, and I'll talk about him too in a second. So I get to the Theosophy Library, and I've already been to a gamer store, the kind that has like board games and jigsaw puzzles and actual, games you can play right there, like tables. And I asked them what's their most geometric game, and they showed me something. It was a jigsaw puzzle, kind of cryptic. It didn't seem that geometric, but what I did buy was an icosahedron, which was a die, and a dice. Like it was big though, and you could uh, recharge it. It was a light, an LCD light, and I took that to a later meetup that evening to Camas, Washington, where I had a meetup with one of my old ESO buddies. That was ESO was a couple of conferences here in Portland that were devoted to the topic of the esoteric. So it was perfect that I had been to the Theosophical Society and asked them too, after being at the game shop, asking the Theosophical Society librarian, and I've been there before, so we kind of know each other, as what is your most geometrical book here in this collection? It's a pretty big collection, I have to say. And she just, without thinking almost, turned around, and right behind her, she pulled up this L. Gordon Plummer, The Mathematics of the Cosmic Mind. And if you're into sacred geometry and that kind of thing, then this is a really worthwhile tome for you, I would say. It really, when it comes to sacred geometry, I don't really see much point going forward if it doesn't include the synergetics, unit volume, tetrahedron, concentric hierarchy, and all that. It's like if you're doing sacred geometry today and you're not incorporating Fuller's stuff, I'm not that interested. But I know that Fuller stuff didn't exist yet, like pre-1970s, before the publication of synergetics. So I'm interested to look at precursors. I'm interested in looking, like, I can't fault these older books for ignoring subsequent breakthroughs. So these have more interest. The older books on sacred geometry have a lot more interest to me than newer ones that bleep over the Bucky stuff, which I consider somewhat lazy. Okay, and then what about Bradford? I've met him before too. He used to live in North Dakota, but now he's moved closer to me. He's in Cascadia in Portland, so we got together again, and he showed me this time. I got to see his gallery, and look at all these folded. It's all folded out of paper plates, basically. He starts with circles, and he's done everything you can do by folding circles. That's an exaggeration, but so it's kind of like origami, but not really. Like, I don't think he likes to think of it quite that way, but it's very polyhedral, and it does get us into the same ballpark, the same domain. He folds some of the same stuff that we're into here. Also, the following Sunday at the Quakers, one of the Street Roots guys gave me one of these galactic calendars, which is a lunar calendar with 13 months. Very dense. It's kind of like Dr. Bronner's soap. It's got all this text and beautiful pictures. He said he met the woman who made this on a bus one day in Lake Oswego or something like that. And it was life-changing to study this. And I thought, yeah, I'm going to look at it. It looks very interesting. And it probably, it is sense synergetic, so I am interested even so, right? Even if it's not got the synergetics in it. I'm not that strict, right? I'm just saying as a rule of thumb, if you're into sacred geometry but you don't have the Bucky stuff, probably not for me. And then I want to go back to this book, which I have shown before. This is the Everything is Under Control Encyclopedia of Conspiracies, Cults, and Cover-Ups. Now, if you're following closely in the School of Tomorrow, you've seen on Synergio how, in my case, I'm into revectoring the word cult per cultography theory or cultigory theory, which is a whole video I did, right, about revectoring word meaning trajectories, which is a long way of saying we do have the power to power over meaning. It's different from concerns about truth in the philosophical sense in some sense, because you can get to the same endpoint, to the same truth, let's say, by different routes. And the route, it can matter. And so you could say the same truth, but the way we get there, the means to the end we talk about, meanings, how do we get to the required endpoint? Now, I just wanted, before I elaborate on that in a second, I want to again draw your attention to the fact that the grunch as a meme is already well established by the time this book comes out. And you'll find on page 219 the entry under grunch. It's alphabetical. And I like to highlight this from time to time because it is still relevant. Grunch of Giants is still a book that, if you want to consider yourself well educated, you've got to read. In my view, obviously, I'm speaking from personal opinion. Like, I have a certain position. I have a certain polemical position that I share it. Like, for example, what I'm showing next, how to get to this density of the CCP lattice. What's the computation you want to make? There's the old way with the unit cell and the computations that go on there and the result that you get. It's about 74% full. We're talking about balls packed together, right? In a CCP, cubic close packing. The domain of each ball in such a packing is a rhombic dodecahedron, which we make out of mites and couplers and stuff like that. And its distinct approach in synergetics to getting that same answer of 74% full, 26% empty is we ratio our rhombic dodecahedron to the ball that it contains, because the rhombic dodecahedron is the spherical domain of every ball in the CCP. So if you want to know what percent of space is full compared to all of space, just divide the volume of one ball by the volume of its container. and that'll pick up the empty space that surrounds the container, and you'll get the same answer, about 74%. So that's two routes to the same answer. One way we're doing it with XYZ math. The other way we use what's called S3, or the synergetics constant, and we get the value of the sphere, 4/3 pi r squared. We say r is the radius of the CCP sphere, and we take the unit cube, XYZ cube, and we realize that in the synergetics world, the unit edged cube, unit radius cube, has an irrational volume. That's the price we pay for everything else to be so nice, is we sacrifice the unit cube, so central to our civilization. And this is why we don't study synergetics, because this is heresy. There's no good, it's all the arguments against it are emotional. They're not like rational. We make the cube irrational, and in exchange, we get the rational cube, whole number cube, volume of 3 for the d diagonal, d meaning diameter of the sphere. Face diagonals of that cube are the same as the diameter of the CCP ball. It has a volume 3, and here in this animated GIF I'm showing them, the magenta is the unit edge cube, r edged cube, and then we have the larger volume 3 cube in green, and then the rhombic dodecahedron in blue, and the ball that appears inside is the CCP ball. And we pack together the blue rhombic dodecahedrons, and we get the CCP, and we compute its density, same as we do in XYZ, but with different numbers, because we have S3. We multiply the sphere, 4/3 pi, r to the third is just 1, so 4/3 pi times square root of 9/8, which is S3. That's the volume of a unit cube in IVM units, units. And we get the volume of the sphere in the IVM. We ratio that to 6, and we get the same answer. So this would be high school, or, I don't know, early college. I think sphere packing is a high school topic and a science topic, and this is how we would do it in the Silicon Forest, right? If you're lucky enough to go to a kind of an exclusive elite school like the kind that we're doing here, School of Tomorrow. So that's my rant, not a rant, that's my narrative meeting in Camas with my Esozone friends. Dave DiNucci came with me. Oh, I wanted to mention Dave and I went to a pizza place, and it was very clear to me that there was deliberate resonance with Masons, kind of like we do with McMinimans around here. They actually own an old Masonic lodge, and their properties don't disguise the roots of their properties. They bring it out, and I feel like this Portland Star Pizza does the same thing. So I made this grok image to bring out, AI generated, to bring out what looks so Masonic about the pizza place to me in terms of its webpage and its internal decor. Once you get there, it looks like this. And then I wrote this MLK Day journal entry about kind of cults and how we should all look for more ways to communicate in a friendly manner rather than always being at loggerheads. So I have no problem talking to Theosophists or Masons or anybody, and we can have as a common language to some degree geometry, right? It's that kind of thing that sits between us as a common conversation piece, and we can have, we're all into it. All the cults I know tend to have a foot in the geometry ballpark, so let's think more about how to, I'm not talking about a grand unification of all the religions or something, I'm just talking about dialogue, talking about interaction, and I'm talking about not being bigoted versus other cults that you might not be in, and yet you have a world that you live in that has these other people. So why not? Why not? That was in the spirit of MLK, I Have a Dream. And I go on into how, for me, merging my Quakerism more with a Mithraism, a Mithraic, what I've constructed in my own mythology or my own thinking as what Mithraism was all about, which had to do with egalitarianism. It's like on the surface, where soldiers say we're different rank, we have very different roles in life. It's like theater, but then you go down, you descend into a Mithraic temple, and there we become more equal because we get beyond the ego. The ego is where our personality and our persona reside. And the chief symbol in the Mithraic religion is slaying the bull, which I take to mean self-control over the ego, not having the ego run your life, right? It's there, but to slay it means to not have it run your life. It's not in control. And in that space, you can be equals with others. You don't have to feel superior. You don't have to emphasize how you outrank people, or you don't have to be subservient or sycophantic. And this is very much the Quaker ideal as well. So that's my plug for Mithraism, something Martin Luther King studied in his youth, and I admire his scholarship there. That's what I talk about, that I admire his life of the mind. Worked with Kiyoshi Kuramiya, by the way. All right, that's enough for now. Kind of rambling, but this is how it is with School of Tomorrow. We wander in our own hyper trails, and if we're local to each other, like me and Bradford, we can get together, or me and Bob from Zone, or whatever, we can talk. Like he was playing jazz drums when we met in Camas, but he'd come over, talk to David and I about the Red Book, Carl Jung, and, I told him my theosophy stories and stuff. And by the way, this whole thing about cults and how I want to make it a more neutral term, just short for subculture. I'll end on this picture. I just couldn't believe finding this can after I'd already written how much I want to revector the word cult. See, I was talking earlier about what I'm doing there. And then I got this can that says subculture and cult on the same can, kind of just summarizing what I was talking about. I like those kind of synchronistic things. Okay, that's good. Talk to you in the near future.